Now, before we get to the next chapter, I'd like to post a picture of Dr. Michael Cohen, aka Ilya Kagansky, aka Mr. Dominic. This guy's got more aliases than you can shake a stick at. Now, we're going to talk about the U.S. Coast Guard. And I busted traffickers, smugglers, dealers, from one end of the globe to the other. But after Vietnam, which I served during Vietnam, I was transferred to the U.S. Coast Guard cutter Dauntless out of Miami Beach. Now, the Dauntless is a 210-foot cutter, and it's a top-heavy winch, let me tell you. We got a flight deck out there, put a helicopter on there so we can go ahead and check out the people that we want to pull over. Seize. Heave to for a Coast Guard boarding. Now, this was 1976 when I just came on board. And the captain, who came on at the same time I did, was J.C. Uthall. Now, Captain Uthall was up for Rear Admiral at the time, and he wanted to spend a little time on the water, and he wanted to try his new surveillance out. We were a very successful ship. We were the most successful drug-busting boat from 77 to 78 in Coast Guard history. It was quite a ride. And I'll be writing this novel very soon. Of course, you know how writing goes, it takes a lot of time. The captain was very, very gracious. Captain Uthall would pull over the boat, toss the anchor, and we started diving off the flight deck, diving off the bridge, having a beer, chilling out, relaxing, spearfishing, scuba diving. He put a movie out on the flight deck so we could watch, and that's the way we lived. But every time we went out on patrol, we busted somebody. Whether it was 100 tons or a ton and a half on a sailboat with a wife and their two cats, it didn't matter. Every time we went out, we made a seizure. Now, the one thing that you should remember about is the night train. Now, the night train was a 150-foot freighter out of Columbia. And she had a different registry, but we pulled her over, and she tried to ram us. And after she tried to ram us, you could see the kilos of cocaine coming out the fantail, out of their porthole. And they dumped a lot of cocaine. But what they had in their hold was over 50 tons of high-grade Colombian. Now, let me tell you, it was the best smoke you've ever had. This was the beginning of my career. And it was a great career. And I enjoyed my work. I enjoyed my brothers and sisters in arms. We always had each other's back. But there's a hypocrisy here. You see, if you ask anybody on the street, over 65% of this entire country wants legalization of marijuana. Probably a lot higher by now, too. Law enforcement has thrown millions of our countrymen into prison with their friends from the law, with their friends in the judiciary, pointing their fingers at us, just because we want to have a joint. And we smoked a lot. As a matter of fact, we woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning and burned one right there on the fantail of the Dauntless. We burned one for lunch. We burned one after work. Nobody's going to say anything because you're not going to prosecute your angels, the men that do their job for pennies on the dollar, who put their life on the line for pennies on the dollar, for a hypocrisy. Now, we had this gunny, first class, on board. And after that night train tried to ram us, the captain said he cut him loose. He sprayed that bridge on the night train so much 50 caliber machine gun fire that it chewed up the helm. We had to build another helm just to get it back into Miami. Well, Gunny was even one better. He took the K-Pock out of the life jackets and stuffed them full of marijuana, 29 pounds plus. And he split it between the crew. Of course, when you're busting drug buds, you don't pay for marijuana, you just roll it and smoke it. And I did one better. I took my share up to MacDill Air Force Base in Tampa, and I brought it to my brothers in arms in the Air Force. My brother was stationed in the Air Force up there. So I took care of the Air Force guys. That way they didn't have to go out on the street and get ripped off or beat up or anything. Of course, when you have short hair back in the 70s, everybody thought you were a cop. So we'll be telling that story, and I wanted to give you a little bit of a taster. Gunny had this little yellow Spitfire convertible. And then his console, in the carpet, he had little marijuana leaves growing right out of his carpet so everybody could see. And every day he'd go in and out of that front gate on the station, and nobody said a thing. Nobody did a thing. And here's a premise. President Carter at that time ran on the ticket that he was going to legalize marijuana nationwide so we could pay off the national deficit, that wartime debt that was incurred during Vietnam. Leave it to the Colombians to bring in that cocaine, and that threw everything off. Then came Reagan, 78. The mood of the country is changing, which means the mood of the military has to change. So next you're going to go ahead and victimize your people for their hypocrisy, the government's hypocrisy. Shame on us. Shame on our courts. Shame on our law enforcement. Shame on the men of false intentions. To sit there and make criminals out of our own countrymen, hardworking, tax-paying countrymen, for the sake of a marijuana joint. My God. The hypocrisy is duly noted. Well, that story is going to be coming. I just wanted to give you a little taster of what was going on back then, but that was the 70s. And you all saw American Made with Tom Cruise, right? Yeah. We got a lot of stories to tell our countrymen. Stay tuned.